Hey everyone. So one question that I get a lot of the time is, which programming language should I learn if I would start programming in 2019? And my answer for that is all of them. Seriously. Go right now, pick up a book, and learn every single language. Every single framework. And then, and only then, the money's gonna start flowing into your bank. If you really want to make money, like Gary Vee and some of those guys say, just go start buying and selling stuff, or you can flip houses or something like that. Programming is not the only way to make money. There's a lot of much easier ways that don't require sitting down learning as much. If you are getting into it because you're actually passionate about it and you like it, or you like problem solving in general, I think then that's fine. That's a good use case for you. If you want to help people and you feel like you don't have a specific skill set, I think programming is a great skill set to pick up, especially in 2019 because there's so many ways to pick it up. If you are trying to just start out and you don't really know a lot about programming, I think a lot of people recommend Python. I'm actually going to go against that and say I recommend Java. My issue with Python is that while it's a very, very easy programming language to learn, I don't just want you to write a hello world program. I want you to learn how to code in general. Java has a lot of essentials that are, like, you can't really learn Java without learning the essentials, which is really nice about it. So that's why I usually recommend Java over Python, because you can do a lot in Python with not really much knowledge about programming in general, which I'm not a fan of. I want you to learn how to do it so your code doesn't come out horrible and buggy later on. If you are interested in web development specifically, there is 1,000,001 frameworks. I'm speaking just for 2019. I definitely recommend the MERN stack, which is basically Mongo, Express, React, and Node.js. Basically, those are 4 different frameworks that use JavaScript, and then you are able to write a website from one end to another, which is pretty cool. If you are trying to create a much smaller website that has a lot of static content, which is basically your average blogs, even simple e-commerce shops and stuff like that, I recommend WordPress. It's very easy to set up. Obviously, you need to know HTML, CSS, and some of those things for you to do the MERN stack. I'm just saying, in specific, you're better off if you want to do web development learning JavaScript, as you may have probably heard by now. Oh, and another note on the MERN stack, by the way, is that I definitely recommend learning MySQL instead of Mongo. There is a lot of debate on that. I'm the type of person that wants you to learn the basics before you'll go and learn, the crazy stuff. Mongo is not really going to teach you the basics. It's going to work, but it's not going to teach you the basics. Again, the same argument with Python and Java. Python's going to work, Java's going to teach you the basics. So I definitely recommend MySQL before going into Mongo. And you can really use any styling framework that you want. I recommend Bulma because it is pretty lightweight, and I like lightweight, so does everyone. So moving on to iOS development. That's pretty much what I do mainly. I definitely recommend Swift. In this case, I don't recommend Objective-C by any means. Objective-C will make you hate development altogether. It's not for everyone. Don't trust me. And you're probably gonna need to use some package manager, which in that case would be CocoaPods or Carthage, whatever you choose. As for Android, I definitely recommend that you learn Kotlin. Even though Java I think is dominant right now in the market, I think Kotlin is a very big one because it's a modern programming language. I always recommend modern programming languages for new developers because they have more concepts with less learning curve, which is nice. And they're mostly more readable, and they don't have any of the old outdated theory that you don't even need to know in the future. If you want to do just straight up backend development, a huge one that's rising now is Golang. It is a language developed by Google. Basically, it supports YouTube and it supports a lot of the big Google libraries. Google claims that you get the performance of C++ with the writability of Python. So it's very readable and easy to pick up, but it is extremely fast and efficient like C++. And obviously, a big one for backend is something like Node.js. I believe that PHP and Java for backend are a little less used now. I think that if you don't have to support any legacy project, then you should really go ahead and just learn Node.js or Golang and just work with them, play around with them. So something also you should look into if you're just starting out, but obviously that's later in the list, something like Docker and something like Kubernetes. Those are tools that you use and they support you in your development. They're not necessarily required by any means, by the way, but I highly recommend them. They work very well when you know how to use them, and they're very good tools to have in your tool set. I definitely also recommend stuff like Bash, just learning how to use a terminal, and some continuous integration service like Jenkins or Travis CI. Also, a really big one is learning about Git or version control. Basically, Git, if you think about Google Docs and how two different people can write into the same Google Doc, Git allows you to do that with code. So when there's like 4 or 5 developers, if you have a tree, you branch out of the tree, and after the code is reviewed, you can merge back into that tree, and things get nicely merged instead of you having any overwrites or not being able to reverse any changes that you've made. I personally think if you're looking at software development as long-term, I think you should learn the basics and understand them really well. If you're not going for them long-term, then you should learn something like prototyping, platforms like Adobe XD, which don't require any programming language, by the way. That's pretty much it. And if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you very much.